Feedback. Let's be honest, if you really want to get into the mind of a man, truly get into his sights, you have to start with his ego. You can't skip this part, feedback, because the ego is not just a part of a man. In many ways, it's the framework through which he understands himself, the world, and especially his value to you. Now, feedback. I know when I say go, people tend to jump to extremes. They think arrogance, they think inflated self-importance. But I want you to put that stereotype aside for a second. Feedback. The ego I'm talking about isn't just about thinking highly of himself. It's about his sense of identity, his self-worth, and how he feels about who he is when he's with you. Back. Most men are deeply insecure, even the confident ones, especially the confident ones. You see a guy walk into a room, commanding attention, cracking jokes, oozing charm, and you might assume, wow, feedback. This guy's got it all together. But underneath all of that charisma, there's often a fragile ecosystem of validation that he's desperately trying to maintain. Feedback. And the moment you understand that his ego is not a rock solid wall, but more like a balancing act, that's when everything changes. Here's the secret. Feedback. A man becomes obsessed not when he feels worshipped, but when he feels he's slightly uncertain about where he stands with you, uncertain about your full opinion of feedback, and uncertain about whether he's meeting your standard. That uncertainty doesn't weaken his attraction, it fuels it. You might think, feedback. Wouldn't a man want a woman who makes him feel amazing all the time? Sure, that sounds nice in theory, but the truth is, if you're always the woman who's clapping from the sidelines, feedback, always impressed, always easy to read. His brain's on autopilot. There's nothing to chase, nothing to figure out, and worst of all, nothing to win. Feedback, because the male ego is addicted to the win. From the time we're boys, we're told to achieve, to conquer, to earn the admiration of others. We tie our value to results, grades, sports, money, feedback, status, recognition. And as adults, that continues in the dating world. If you walk in and instantly hand him the gold medal, he didn't win anything. And that's when his interest fades. Feedback, not because you're amazing, but because his ego never got activated. Feedback. But when you walk into a man's life and you're not immediately swept away by his smile, but don't overindulge it, when you see through the carefully curated version of him and he knows it now, feedback. And now you've touched his ego. You've done something that most women don't. And suddenly, instead of being in control, he's wondering, wait, does she see me like the others do? Back. Did that line land? Did I impress her or not? He starts analyzing. He replements. He asks himself questions. And without realizing it, he's already giving you space in his mind. Feedback. Because his ego, which is used to feeling validated just by walking into a room, is now slightly bruised. And what do people do when their ego gets bruised? They seek resolution, their feedback. They want to restore their status. They want to reclaim the feeling of being powerful in your eyes. And let me tell you, that's when the game changes. Because now feedback, it's not about you chasing him. It's about him chasing the version of himself he wants to be in your presence. He wants to be the guy who impresses you, the guy who stands out. Feedback, the guy who earns your respect, admiration, and eventually your affection. But none of that happens if you feed his ego like everyone else does. Now, some people hear this and go too far. Feedback. They think, all right, then I'll insult him, put him down, make him feel small. No, that's not power. That's you don't need to diminish him to disrupt his ego. Feedback. You just need to stop handing out unearned praise. You need to stay grounded in your own value. Instead of defaulting to being impressed by him, let him work to impress you. Feedback. Let there be a little mystery in your approval. Let him wonder. And when he does something impressive, don't give him the over-the-top reaction he might be used to. Give him a pause. Feedback. A thoughtful, not bad, or even better, a playful challenge. Is that supposed to impress me? That moment lights his brain on fire because it's unfamiliar feedback. And unfamiliar means exciting. The truth is, when a man feels like he hasn't completely on you, he starts to invest more. His ego needs the win. But here's the key. You're the prize. Feedback, not because you act superior, but because you value yourself so highly that you're not easily swayed by surface level performances. And this is important when you carry yourself like this. Feedback. It's not about games, it's about self-respect. It's about knowing that your time, energy, and affection are well earned, not handed out to anyone who smiles nicely and has a good job. Feedback. That confidence disrupts his sense of control, and that disruption makes you unforgettable. There's a moment every man experiences when he realizes feedback. She sees it through me. That's the moment his ego takes a hit. But it's not a hit that turns him away. It's a hit that makes him you obsess. Because now, feedback, his is no longer resting on old routines. It's activated, alive, and it wants your validation, not the world's. So when people ask me, feedback, how do I make a guy obsessed with me? I tell them you don't do it by stroking his ego. You do it by touching it ever so slightly. Feedback. In a way that makes him question it, just enough he starts chasing not just your attention, but your approval. Feedback. That's the moment you stop being just another person in his life and become the one person who truly matters. Feedback. We live in a world where attention is currency. People are constantly giving it away, hoping to get something in return, validation, affection, approval, and in dating, it's even more magnified. Feedback. When you like someone, it feels natural to show it, right? You want them to know you're interested. So you compliment them, you laugh at their jokes, you reply quickly, you're available. Feedback. You're supportive, and all of it comes from a good place. Feedback. But here's where it gets tricky. Most women don't realize how quickly that kind of attention can shift the dynamic in ways that feel good at first, but ultimately destroy attraction. Feedback. Let's talk about over-validation. It's subtle. It doesn't look like a mistake. It looks like kindness. It looks like connection. It feels like generosity. But the truth is, feedback, when you're too available emotionally, too forthcoming with praise, too obvious in your interest, you give away your value before it's been earned. Feedback. And for a man, especially a man who's used to female attention, it can be intoxicating at first and then boring. Because when everything is too easy, the brain doesn't stay interested. Feedback. It doesn't have to work. It doesn't have to wonder. And if a man doesn't have to wonder how you feel, where he stands with you, or whether he's truly won your heart, he stops trying. Feedback. Not consciously. But the mystery fades, and with it, so does the thrill. Now, that doesn't mean you should play games. It doesn't mean you become cold or aloof. Feedback. Or act like you don't care when you do. What it does mean is that you become selective, that you recognize your attention is a precious resource, not something you throw around. Feedback, not something you offer just because a guy shows up and seems nice, but something you give when someone truly shows up for you in a meaningful way. Let me paint this for you. A guy comes along. Feedback. He's attractive. He's charming. He's saying all the right things. And right away, you're tempted to let your guard down. You want to reflect his energy back to him. Feedback. You want to match his compliments, his interest, his excitement. But what if, just for a moment, you paused? What if instead of rushing to give, you let him in your reaction? Feedback. Because here's the truth, men value what they have to work for. It's built into our psychology. When something is earned, it feels more valuable. Feedback. It's not that we want people to be difficult. It's that effort creates investment, and investment creates desire. Feedback. So instead of instantly validating him with, "You're so funny, you're so smart, you're amazing," slow it down. Let him wonder. Let him ask himself. Feedback. Does she think I'm impressive? Don't answer that question right away. Let the space between stimulus and response build some intrigue. Give him the gift of uncertainty. Now, feedback. When I say be mysterious, I don't mean be vague for the sake of it. I mean allow room for him to be curious. Don't give him the full picture on day one. Feedback. Don't hand him your whole life story over dinner. Don't reveal all your emotions before he's shown you that he's even capable of handling them. Feedback. Your mystery isn't just about what you say. It's about what you withhold, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that says, I know my value. Feedback. And I don't give that to just anyone. When a man gets a taste of that, when he senses that you're not handing over constant praise or immediate intimacy, something interesting happens. Feedback. He starts working harder. He listens more closely. He pays more attention. He becomes more thoughtful. Why? Because now your approval means something. It's not cheap. It's not predictable. Feedback. It's rare, and rare things are irresistible. Think about it like this. If every other woman he meets showers him with compliments, feedback, but you hold yours back until he's really done something meaningful, yours stands out, it lands deeper, it hits harder, and he starts chasing the next one. Not because he's playing a game, feedback, but because his instincts are telling him, this woman is different. She doesn't need me. She chooses me. And that choice, feedback, that's powerful. The mistake so many people make is thinking that being validating equals being loving. It doesn't. Love isn't proven by how many compliments you give. Feedback, it's shown through depth, through presence, through selectivity. It's shown by knowing that not everyone deserves your energy. And when someone does, feedback, it's because they've truly connected with you on a meaningful level. Now, you might be thinking, but isn't it risky to hold back? What if he loses interest? And that fear is valid. Feedback. But here's the reality. If a man loses interest because you're not constantly validating him, he was never going to stick around anyway. You didn't lose him. You revealed him. Feedback. Because the right guy, the one who's ready, grounded, emotionally intelligent, he's going to respect that you're not easy to impress. Feedback. He's going to be challenged by it in the best possible way. And that's what makes obsession start to grow. Because obsession doesn't come from excess. It comes from scarcity. Feedback. Not fake scarcity, not manufactured distance, but real emotional selectivity. The sense that he's dealing with someone who's already whole, already fulfilled. Feedback. And isn't looking for a man to complete her, but to complement her life in a meaningful way. When a man senses that, he steps up, not because you're pressuring him to feedback, but because his desire to rise to the challenge takes over. He wants your attention because it's not guaranteed. He wants your praise because it's not automatic. Feedback. And every time he gets a little bit of it, an authentic compliment, a moment of real connection, it matters. It feels earned. And that feeling, that's what keeps him coming back. Feedback. So the next time you're tempted to pour out your affection too soon, remember this: your value isn't in how much you give. It's in how intentional you are with what you give. Feedback. Make your attention mean something. Make your validation feel like a reward, not a given. And watch what happens when a man realizes he can't coast. He has to rise. Feedback. There's this moment that happens in every relationship or potential relationship that most people don't talk about. It's the moment where the dynamic subtly shifts. Feedback. And it doesn't come from some grand romantic gesture or heated argument. It comes from something much smaller but infinitely more powerful, a moment of challenge. A moment where feedback, instead of nodding along and agreeing with everything he says, you calmly, confidently disagree. Not to provoke, not to argue, but because you're being real. And that moment, feedback. That's where the obsession can begin. You see, most people go into dating with this idea that the best way to connect is to ever agree, to find common ground, to validate each other. Feedback, to keep things smooth. And while yes, compatibility is important, here's the truth that very few people understand: challenge sparks chemistry. Feedback. And I don't mean challenges in hostility or argument. I mean the subtle, confident kind of challenge that makes a man take a second look at you and think. Feedback. Okay, she's not like the others. And men are used to being in control, especially if he's good looking, successful, or charismatic. Feedback. He walks into most interactions knowing he holds the power. He's used to his charm working, used to people laughing at his jokes, nodding along, being impressed. Feedback. So when you're the one who doesn't automatically give him that reaction, when you raise an eyebrow at something he says, feedback, or offer a different perspective with calm self-assurance, it disrupts that narrative. And that disruption is electric, because what just happened, you challenged his sense of superiority. Feedback. You didn't try to tear him down, you didn't insult him or make it personal. Feedback. But you made it clear that you're not someone who's going to blindly agree just because he's attractive or confident or successful. You're someone with your own standards, your own views, feedback, and your own self-respect. And that is unbelievably attractive. Think about this: when was the last time someone genuinely made you think twice? Feedback. Made you stop in your tracks and reevaluate something you said or believed. Those moments stick because they make us feel something real. Feedback. And when you can do that to a man, not by trying to outsmart him, but simply by standing your ground with grace, you stop being forgettable. You become unforgettable. Feedback. Most women are afraid to challenge a man because they're worried it'll make him pull away. Feedback. What if he doesn't like it? What if he thinks I'm too difficult? What if I scare him off? But here's the reality. Feedback. The man who is scared off by your confidence, by your willingness to disagree respectfully, isn't a man who would have ever made you happy long term. Feedback. The right man will be intrigued by your strength, not threatened by. And here's the beauty of it: this kind of challenge doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It's often quiet, subtle, feedback, controlled. It's in the way you hold eye contact when you disagree, the calm tone in your voice when you say, actually, feedback, I don't see it that way. Or even just a pause after he makes a bold claim, followed by a slight smirk and a really. That pause, that moment of tension, that's where the power lies. Feedback. Because now you've done something most people don't. You've triggered his ego, not in a way that crushes it, but in a way that activates it. You've made him want to prove something, not to the world, not to everyone else, but to have you. And that shift is the beginning of obsession. Feedback. He's no longer just thinking about you as someone to impress. He's thinking about how he is showing up in your eyes. He's wondering if he measures up. He's working to earn your respect. Feedback, not just your attention. And this is crucial. Men don't fall for women who boost their ego all the time. They fall for the women who check their ego in a way that makes them grow, who show them feedback gently and powerfully. That admiration isn't a given. It's something worth striving for. And that striving, that's where the emotional hooks start to sink in. Now, feedback. It's important that this challenge comes from the right place, not from insecurity, not from defensiveness, not from a need to be right, but from self-worth. Feedback from a grounded sense of I have my own perspective and I'm not afraid to share it. That kind of energy is magnetic. It's rare and men feel it instantly. Feedback. They might not be able to name it, but they know something's different about you. They feel a kind of pressure, but it's the good kind, the kind that makes them want to step up. Feedback. When a man steps up, when he begins to shift from trying to impress you on a surface level to trying to earn your admiration, his ego becomes emotionally invested. Feedback. He's not just playing the game anymore. He's in it. He's thinking about what you think of him. He's wondering how to get closer. He's replaying conversations in his head. Feedback. That's how obsession begins, not with flattery, but with friction, the right kind of friction. Feedback. So if you're sitting across from a man and he says something you don't agree with, don't let it slide just to keep the peace. Say what you think. Let him feel your depth. Feedback. Let him know that you're someone who won't be swept up in charm alone, that he has to bring more than confidence. He has to bring character. Feedback. And that starts with how he reacts when he's challenged. Feedback. Because the woman who can stand toe to toe with a man and challenge him without losing her softness, without becoming cold or defensive, is the woman who keeps him up at night. Feedback. Not because she played hard to get, but because she wasn't easy to impress. She made him dig deeper. And once a man starts digging, he doesn't want to stop until he's figured you out. feedback. But the beautiful thing is, he never really can, because your strength and soft, your honesty and challenge, your standards and openness, they're a combination he doesn't come across often. Feedback. And that's what makes you unforgettable. That's what keeps him thinking, reaching, wanting. That's the spark that doesn't fade. Feedback. There's a moment in the early stages of connection where a lot of women make a critical mistake without even realizing it. Feedback happens when a man starts to pull away a little. He takes a bit longer to text back, seem less engaged. The energy you were feeling before begins to shift. Feedback. And because the connection felt so good, because it had momentum, you start trying to fix it. You lean in. You send the follow-up text. You get more expressive, more affectionate, more available. Feedback. And on the surface, it seems like the right thing to do, right? After all, if something feels off, you should bring more love, more clarity, more effort to it. But in reality, feedback, that's not how attraction works. Men don't fall in love through consistency of attention. They fall in love through contrast. Feedback, through feeling the difference between your presence and your absence, through noticing what life feels like with your energy and what it feels like without it. Feedback. And here's the truth most people don't talk about. If a man never experiences your absence, he never fully values your presence. We think that closeness equals connection. That if we just keep showing up, keep expressing how much we care, keep staying engaged, we'll keep him engaged too. But what really drives obsession, what actually makes a man emotionally invest, feedback, is spacey. Not distance that feels cold or punishing, but space that is rooted in self-respect. Space that says, if your energy shifts, mine will too. Not because I'm playing games, feedback, but because I'm in tune with myself. This kind of space isn't about punishing a man for pulling away. It's about responding in kind. It's about mirroring, not casing. Feedback. When he stops investing emotionally, you don't keep the entire relationship afloat. You don't fill in the gaps for him. You don't overcompensate. You step back, you recalibrate. Feedback. And that moment is powerful because it creates contrast. Contrast is everything. Imagine a song that only has one note playing on repeat. There's no movement, no emotion, no tension, no release. Feedback. Now imagine a song that has depth, variation, rhythm, build up. That's the kind of emotional experience that draws people in. That's what keeps them interested. Feedback. And your energy in a relationship works the same way. When a man feels that your energy is responsive, not reactive, not needy, feedback, but intentional, he starts to realize you're not like everyone else. You're not going to do all the work. You're not going to overextend just to keep things moving. Feedback. You're not someone he can take for granted and expect to still have access to. And that realization, that's when he starts to feel the loss of you. Even if he hasn't lost you completely. Feedback. The sense that that your warmth and presence are not permanent features in his life unless he matches your effort, ignites a completely different reaction in his mind. Feedback. It taps into something primal. Something that says, if I don't act, I might lose her. And that thought, that's the seed of obsession, because now he's not just enjoying you. Feedback. He's missing you. He's longing for what he once had easy access to. And longing creates emotional depth in a way that constant closeness never could. The problem is feedback. So many women are afraid to create that space. They're afraid that if they step back, he'll forget them. That if they don't remind him of their value, he'll move on. Feedback. But the opposite is true. He forgets you when you're always there, when there's never a moment without your validation, when there's no space for him to question, to reflect, to miss you. Feedback. That's when you become background noise. When you lean back and allow space to exist, you're not giving up. You're demonstrating that you trust yourself enough not to chase. Feedback. That your worth isn't defined by someone else's level of engagement. And that subtle, quiet confidence, it's magnetic because it says, I like you, but I don't need you. Feedback. I enjoy your presence, but I'm perfectly whole without it. And that kind of energy makes a man crave your presence, not just enjoy it when it's there. Feedback, but need to earn it back when it's gone. Now, here's where it becomes even more powerful when he starts to re-engage, when he notices your absence and starts texting again, asking to see you. Feedback. Reaching out, you don't punish him. You don't play hard to get. You meet him halfway if you genuinely want to. But you also don't rush back in with the same energy he once took for granted. Fecund, you allow things to build again. You make him work for it. And that work, that effort, that's what makes it stick, because obsession doesn't come from always being accessible. Feedback, it comes from creating emotional ebb and flow, from letting him experience the absence of your energy and then letting him earn the return of it. That's what makes a man appreciate you. Feedback, that's what makes him value your time, your affection, your presence. And once a man values those things, he doesn't want to risk losing them again. Feedback, the most intoxicating people aren't the ones who are always around. They're the ones who know exactly when to step back and who do so without drama, without explanation. Feedback, without the need for reassurance. They let the silence do the talking. They let the absence speak. And when it does, it says, I know who I am. Feedback. I don't chase energy that's not reciprocated. So if you're in a situation where a man's attention is slipping, don't panic. Don't rush to fix it. Feedback. Don't give more in the hopes of getting more. Instead, pull your energy back with grace. Fill that space with your own life, your own joy, your own direction. Feedback. Let him feel what it's like when you're not around to provide emotional support on demand. Let him feel the vacuum you leave behind, not to punish him. Feedback, but to remind him that your presence is a privilege. And when he feels that absence, and when it stirs something in him, when it makes him reflect, reach out, reevaluate, that's when the real connection begins. Because it's not rooted in convenience anymore. It's rooted in his desire, in choice, in emotional investment. Feedback. That's the moment you stop being an option and become a priority. Feedback. There's something wildly misunderstood when it comes to emotional attraction, especially when we're talking about making a man truly obsessed with you. Feedback. We often think that attraction is built through our looks, our availability, the cute texts we send, or the way we show up when he needs us. And sure, those things have their place. But the truth is, feedback, what creates deep, lasting obsession isn't just about what you give, it's about what you withhold. Not in a manipulative, game-playing kind of way, but in the way you protect your emotional access like something valuable, because it is valuable. Feedback. And when a man senses that your vulnerability is something sacred, not something handed out on a silver platter, everything changes. Think about this for a second. Feedback. When someone gives us everything too early, too quickly, it feels nice in the moment. It's flattering, it strokes the ego, but it doesn't create depth. It doesn't create value. Feedback, as value is always tied to rarity. We don't obsess over what's easy to get. We obsess over what feels earned, special, and exclusive. Feedback. So when you treat your emotional access like it's something a man has to earn, you automatically elevate the dynamic. But here's where it gets tricky. Emotional openness is beautiful. Vulnerability is powerful. And so many people talk about the importance of being vulnerable in love, of opening your heart and letting someone in. And yes, absolutely, vulnerability is essential. Feedback, but not all at once, not for free, not to someone who hasn't proven that they know what to do with that access. Feedback. Because emotional intimacy given too soon doesn't feel special. It feels ungrounded. And for a man, it doesn't create the tension that draws him in. It creates a false sense of security. Feedback. A sense that he's already won before he's even had to step up. Let's be real. When you meet a man and instantly share everything about your past, your heart, your fears, feedback, your dreams without really knowing who you're dealing with yet, it might feel like deep connection in the moment. Feedback. But what you're actually doing is robbing him of the journey of getting to know you. You're taking away the process, the mystery, the discovery, the slow burn. Feedback. And what happens when you skip the process? You skip the obsession. Because obsession is built through layers. Feedback. It's not about being a mystery for the sake of being mysterious. It's about honoring the fact that you are a layered person. You have experiences, emotions, values, and stories that not everyone deserves to know. And when you allow someone to earn access to those parts of you over time through trust, consistency, and emotional maturity, it makes every reveal more impactful. It creates emotional gravity. Feedback. The mistake so many people make is thinking that the way to create connection is to open all the doors immediately. But the doors that matter, feedback, they're the ones that only open when someone's behavior says, I respect you, I value you. Feedback, and I'm showing up in a way that deserves your softness. That's when vulnerability becomes a gift, and that gift becomes unforgettable. Now, here's where it really flips the script. Feedback, when you withhold emotional access, not because you're guarded or playing hard to get, but because you know your worth. You force a man to rise. You force him to show you who he is. Feedback, to earn trust, to listen more carefully, to invest more intentionally. You shift the focus from what you are giving him to what he is bringing to the table. And men, whether they admit it or not, feedback, crave that challenge. They want to feel like they're uncovering something valuable. They want to feel like your emotions, your care, your affection means something. Feedback, not just because you're a loving person, but because you chose to give it to him. And that choice, that's what makes him obsessed. But let's be honest, holding back emotionally can be scary. Feedback, especially when you've met someone who seems amazing. When the chemistry is strong and you feel excited, it's tempting to give your heart away early, to fast forward, to go all in. Feedback. And a part of that is beautiful. That's what makes us human. But if you want to create not just attraction, but devotion, you need to balance that excitement with discernment. Feedback. You're not cutting yourself off from connection. You're controlling their pace. You're saying, yes, I feel something. Feedback. But I need to see who you are over time before I open up more. And that kind of patience isn't cold, it's powerful. Because it means your feelings aren't just reactive. Feedback. They're intentional, and intentional feelings make a man pay attention. There's nothing more captivating than a woman who is soft, but not naively open, but not impulsive, warm. Feedback, but not reckless with her emotions. When a man senses that your vulnerability is rarer, not because you're damaged or guarded, feedback, but because you've done the work, because you know your heart isn't something you just toss around, that's when his obsession deepens. Feedback. That's when he doesn't just want to spend time with you. He wants to spend time with you. He wants to deserve the parts of you that no one else gets. And it's not about being closed off. Feedback. It's about having boundaries that are built on self-worth. It's about showing up in a way that says, I am here, I am real. Feedback, but I'm not going to pour everything into you until I see how you hold it. That's not playing games. That's emotional intelligence. That's maturity. Feedback. And that maturity is what separates you from everyone else he's ever. When a man knows that your affection is a privilege, not a guarantee, he stops treating you like an option. Feedback. He starts seeing you as someone he can't afford to lose. Someone whose love is powerful because it's intentional, not automatic. And once he feels that feedback, once he realizes that your emotional access isn't something he can buy with charm or chemistry alone, he'll work, he'll invest, he'll commit, not because he's afraid of losing you, feedback, but because he's inspired to deserve you. And that's when obsession becomes devotion. Feedback. There's a certain power that comes from unpredictability, not the kind that's chaotic or inconsistent, but the kind that makes a man never quite sure what page you'll turn next. Back. It's that light, playful tension that says, you don't fully have me yet. And that tension is addictive. It's magnetic. It creates the kind of emotional pull that makes someone lean in. Feedback, trying to figure you out, trying to uncover the layers, trying to win the next piece of your attention. The moment someone thinks they've figured you out, feedback. The moment they feel like they know exactly how you'll respond, how you'll behave, how available you'll be, that's when they stop trying. And here's the part most people overlook. Feedback. The unknown is where obsession lives. It's not in routine. It's not in predictability. It's in the spaces where a man has to wander. Feedback. When he's not entirely sure if today's version of you will surprise him, not in a way that makes him feel unsafe, but in a way that keeps him intrigued. Feedback. It's the difference between reading a book where you already know the ending and reading one where you turn every page with anticipation, wondering what twist is coming next. Feedback. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean you become someone you're not. It doesn't mean you pretend or act mysterious for the sake of it. What it means is that you allow room for curiosity. Feedback. You don't over-explain yourself. You don't give someone every answer before they've earned the right to ask the question. You don't show all your cards too early. Feedback, because you understand that your essence, your magic, isn't something to be downloaded like an app. It's something to be discovered over time. And this is important. Feedback. Unpredictability isn't about keeping someone guessing whether you like them. That's just insecurity dressed up as strategy. This is about keeping someone engaged by being multi-dimensional. Feedback. You can express interest and still keep your mystery. You can be affectionate and still have layers. Because real unpredictability doesn't come from hot and cold behavior. It comes from being a full spectrum woman, someone who surprises not because she's withholding feedback, but because she's evolving, because she doesn't fit into a box, because she's always growing and every interaction with her feels fresh. Feedback. You ever meet someone and feel like they never really shift gears, like they're stuck in the same tone, the same conversations, the same emotional rhythm? It becomes predictable. And predictability without depth is where attraction goes to die. But someone who brings contrast, who can be playful one moment and piercingly insightful the next. Feedback. Who can challenge you and then comfort you, who can be present and then busy chasing her own goals. That's someone who holds attention because she's not giving you one note. Feedback. She's giving you a song with highs, lows, pauses, crescendos. That's the kind of woman a man obsesses over, not because she's elusive, but because he knows he has to pay attention. He can't just coast. He can't assume. He has to stay curious, stay engaged, stay present, or he risks missing something. And that fear of missing out, that quiet tension, feedback, that's what fuels the emotional fire. That's what keeps him showing up, not because he's afraid, but because he's invested. And you don't create that through manipulation. Feedback. You create it by living fully, by not making someone the sole source of your identity, by continuing to surprise yourself, trying new things, having new experiences. Feedback. Growing in unexpected directions, because the more alive you are in your own life, the more he has to chase to keep up with you. Not in a way that creates imbalance, feedback, but in a way that makes him want to keep earning a front row seat. And sometimes the most powerful unpredictability is in your standards. Feedback. When he thinks you'll accept less because you did last time and you don't. When he expects access because he's charming and you politely decline. Feedback. When he assumes you'll say yes to something and instead you say not today, not out of spite, not as a power play, but because you're rooted, and that kind of rooted woman. Feedback. She keeps a man on his toes. Now let's talk about how this actually looks in practice. Maybe one day you're all in, laughing with him, engaged, affectionate, and the next feedback, you're focused on your life, not because you're playing games, but because you have things going on. Maybe one week you're texting a little more, being emotionally generous, and the next feedback, you're more quiet, introspective, present in your own world. Again, not because you're punishing him, but because you're not outsourcing your energy to keep someone interested. Feedback, you're just being you. And when you includes layers and moods and independence and playfulness and unpredictability, that's when you become unforgettable. Because now, feedback, every interaction carries a kind of spark, a sense of feedback. What's she going to say next? Or what is she thinking right now? Or where did that side of her come from? And that spark doesn't burn out. It doesn't get dull. feedback. It doesn't become routine. It becomes the pulse of the connection, the heartbeat of his interest. And I want you to hear this clearly. Being unpredictable doesn't mean you're unstable. Feedback. It means you're alive. It means you're not showing up in a way that's always convenient, always familiar, always expected. You're showing up real. You're showing up dynamic. Feedback. You're showing up as someone who has her own rhythm. And if he wants to dance with you, he has to listen for the beat, not try to control it, not assume it'll always be the same. Feedback will learn to flow with you. And in doing that, he becomes emotionally invested, emotionally attached, emotionally obsessed, because obsession lives where there is tension. Back, not anxiety producing tension, but emotional stretch. The stretch between knowing and not knowing, the stretch between having and wanting more, the stretch between closeness and individuality. Feedback. That's where desire builds. That's where memories get created. That's where love becomes unforgettable. And once a man realizes that you're not predictable, you're a presence that moves. Feedback, shifts, and surprises. He'll stop trying to just hold you. He'll start trying to understand you. He'll pursue not just your time, but your as mine, not just your body, but your depth. Feedback, not just your affection, but your essence. That's when he becomes obsessed.